And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Reverend Leslie Peters, registered nurse who's had 3 near-death experiences, which we're going to learn about and more. Leslie, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Well, thank you, Jeff. How are you doing today?
I'm great. And
yeah?
I'm even better now that you're here.
Oh, so sweet. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. And if you don't mind, let's start with your first NDE and go from there.
Okay. So I was sharing that my first NDE, the cool thing about my life was that I never knew I had NDEs until 2020, when actually I was giving a talk and some girl came up to me and she's like, "Did you ever read the book Forever Angels?" And I'm like, "No." She goes, "I think you should get it." So I went out, downloaded it on Audible, and I read it, and I'm like, this sounds exactly like me. It was a book about kids who had near-death experiences under the age of 5. And a lot of weird things had been happening around 2020. In 2017, I left work guided by my heart, to share the message of how I lived my life. And I uncovered a whole lot of things, including my spirituality. And I never even knew I believed in God. And turns out I have unshakable faith, like God has been guiding me my whole life. So when I uncovered, I knew I had a car accident at age 2, and there was head trauma. No seatbelts back then, so my head went into the windshield. And that was it. My parents, nobody really talked about anything in my family. So that was all I knew, is that I had a car accident, and no one said anything ever. So when I uncovered it was 2019, I was having a lot of trouble with technology, and I was super smart, productive, but I couldn't figure anything out on the computer. My vision was going, cataract, weird stuff was going, neurological things. I would get on the computer, I'd start drooling and slurring, and I'd sit in front of a blank screen all day. So I knew that childhood trauma, because that's my background, changes the brain. So I thought, let me go get my brain studied. And that was the opening to the door of like, holy jeez. They said I'd had traumatic brain injury at age 2. But with the research I've done, I don't think it was a traumatic brain injury. I think that after that first NDE, I was guided by this voiceless voice in my heart to live in a state of God consciousness. I didn't know it then, but looking back, that's what it was. And I think the brain I have is real, because it doesn't use the executive or the primitive part of the brain. It just uses the heart, communicates directly with the third eye. And so, and anyhow, so I was writing to myself, younger self, saying, "You're amazing. How'd you do everything you did with because I grew up in the 60s. If someone had known about my brain, I would have been put in the very special ed classes, and I never would have achieved what I achieved, right? Because I found my own ways coping. But anyhow, when I wrote to myself, I said, so how did our brain get like this? And my younger self said, like, car accident. And I said, oh, well, how though with the car accident? And she said, well, God gave it to us. Now I'm like in my room going, this is kind of cool, kind of creepy. I've never even uttered the word God my entire life, like never. And I'm like, okay, why did God give us this brain? And it said to teach people to love and forgive. And I was like, oh, wow. So that started a process of writing to my younger self, where I would go into this hypnotic state. I would write for hours, not knowing what I wrote, come out in child's handwriting, really weird stuff. But a year later, I guess, I asked my younger self to take me, I wanted to go back to the near death. And so I was able to take myself back to the hospital. And I was in the ER at that point. And I don't know if I spoke at the age of 2, but I could tell I was saying, don't send me home. Please don't send me home. Don't send me home. And that's when, for the first time, I heard the voiceless voice in my heart. And I just felt this incredible warmth. I did not see a light, but it was just what everyone says, that space of feeling totally safe and just totally at peace. And the voiceless voice that said, you have to go home and your life's going to be extremely challenging, but you'll always be safe. And what I'm doing for you, you'll do for others. And I went, oh my God. Because when I left work, I was trying to think of a label for what I do. Because everyone just has always said to me, I feel so safe in your presence. And I was like, oh my God, it was really weird. So I mean, my recount is different. And I almost, now that I know, looking back, I think they're more like, I can't think of a word for end, but they're like other dimensions, I think. I don't know if it's so much a near death, because what I was guided by the voice my whole life to understand is that heaven and hell are just kind of, they're not really places, they're places within us. And if you live with an open and pure heart, you're residing in heaven. But if you live by your ego and your heart is armored up, then that's hell. And that was kind of what I was taught my whole life. And so I've learned that there are many times in my life where I would get freaked out because I'd lose time and I'd be like, what the hell did I do? Or I'd create things. And I think I actually travel to other. Let me ask you a question. In your heart, so for me, I know I'm a writer, I know I'm a speaker, I see myself performing, and I've, through the years, can feel them so well that either I have a kick-ass imagination or there are other lives in other dimensions. And what I'm learning is that's really cool, because if that's the case, like, what's one thing you always wanted to be? Like, if I'm a genie and I said, here, you have one wish, be or do anything.
Yeah, I don't know, but I want to stop you because I think I need to break in and I need to recap with you some few questions. It appears to me that you were in a car accident and you hit your head on the windshield, and at some point you went to the hospital, and then at the hospital you heard a voice started speaking to you. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have any other supernatural experiences? Like, were you out of your body, or did you go anywhere, or
But
at
that's
least
what
to
I'm telling
another
you.
dimension?
I think my whole life from that point became in and out of different dimensions. That's what I'm trying to say. It's really hard when I start with the NDE, because the way I lived my life was so different than everyone else. And with all the challenges, physical traumas, when you look on paper, there's no way I should come out with everything making me a better person, not a bitter person, and to turn trauma to love. And so when I looked at my life and then I started writing to myself, and then these experiences came out, it is not your traditional. When I was 42, I had traditional NDE, right? But the 1 and 2, I don't remember seeing all those things. But from the time I was 2, I started doing things that other people didn't do, and nobody taught me.
Right.
So my NDEs, like, you know how people come back and they say, I was taught this, I was taught that. My whole life, that voiceless voice, that is what I've listened to every minute of every day. I've had conversations with it since I was a little girl. I just never knew what it was.
Right. So your life almost began with all these abilities, basically.
Yeah.
Do you think this voice is a spirit guide or some other being, or do you think it is your higher self that you're speaking to?
When I grew up, I thought it was my higher self, but I don't. I think it's spirit, because there's something watching over me. I think I have a whole team, to be honest with you, looking back, because there's so many times in my life that someone saved my butt.
So
you know what I mean?
Right. So basically, you just got recalibrated completely at the age of 2. And from there on, your brain, your heart, and your body worked differently. and different than most people's.
Different. And my perspective was entirely different. Like,
right.
I and that started as a kid, but instead of getting angry, like spirit, that voice taught me, and I still do this today throughout the day, hand on heart, breathe ground to crown, and then back down, holding my abs in, and then close my eyes and imagine a world that was loving and safe. So in 1964, I was doing visioning, affirmations, and breathing. Nobody taught me how to do that. Like, luckily, I had parents, teachers, they never really taught me anything. The voice taught me everything.
Does the voice sound like your voice or someone completely different?
It doesn't have a sound. That's why I call it the voiceless voice. And it's like that Jiminy Cricket, but it's on my shoulder. It's in my heart. Like, I'll be, just very simple things. If I walk down the street and I'm walking one way and I hear go left. So I go left. And it takes me as someone who's hurting, who just needs to be seen. And I've done that my entire life. And I think what it was guiding me, even with doing, college, when I went to nursing school, which was second career, I thought, I think I want to go to nursing school. And I just closed my eyes, imagine what it would feel like. And then several years later, I was in nursing school and people are like, how many years did you wait? I'm like, for what? And they're like, the waiting list. I'm like, what waiting list? I applied, I got in. Now, how many nights did you sleep out? I'm like, sleep out for what? And that was kind of my whole life. So the purpose of my NDEs and the voiceless voice, I think, was to show us how we so bought into the matrix that we've made life very complicated. Because when I was 16, I always I knew the answers in school, but I couldn't tell them how I knew the answers. And I just kind of went to the world. I'm just going to be me. And I literally just decided to live in the moment. No goals, nothing, no plans for the next moment. Just live in the moment, give people what I needed. And that put me in that state of flow where all these things kind of just magically happened. Now, there was a lot of inner work. I think my childhood, after that near-death experience, up to the age of around 12, during the abuse, I think I spent much of my time just in my room learning how to become the objective observer, like to really sit in my darkness, sadness, and pain, to shift it, the energy of it, and then to look at other people. When I was in kindergarten, I told people about this and no one did anything. I remember now going, I know it's not about me. So what happened to them? Why are they not able to help a little girl? So that whole perspective of the voice taught me how to perceive experiences so that I knew they weren't about me. It was someone else's. And I don't think it's any mistake that I can't do the way the rest of the world does.
If we go back to your example where you said that you heard go left and then you went left, did you, from what I'm understanding, you really don't hear that. It sounds like to me, it's a thought that comes to your mind.
It's here. I feel it. It's here.
It's like a download of information or just a knowingness. Do this. It's not like you're hearing somebody say, hey, Leslie, go left. You just know for some reason, go left.
Yes, because something, and it's always in my heart. I'm not thinking it, and in the past year, it's kind of cool as I've I think, tapped into my spiritual abilities more. I can actually ask it questions. But it doesn't come from here, because in the beginning, when I tried to ask the questions, I'd be like, is that me or is that you? And it would be like, that's you. And I'm like, damn, when I sense it from my heart. I think for all of us and what NDEs, what they're trying to tell us is the heart is the key to everything. To tap into whatever's bigger than us, whatever you believe in, you must have an open heart chakra.
It seems to me that you have a very advanced intuitive ability.
Yeah.
Like this intuition. I would call it a highly advanced intuition comes to you, like go left.
Yeah. Let me show you something. Put your hand on your heart and just for maybe a minute, stay silent. Okay. And just kind of relax. Okay. Open up. Did you feel any sensations?
No, but it's hard for me to do something like this because one,
That's okay.
I'm being the host, and
No,
two,
I
I have a
know.
lot of stuff going
There
on in my
was
life right now.
when the heart chakra is totally open, right? That, like I do it with some friends, you can feel the energy. I can feel yours. You can feel mine. And so, actually, one of the gifts as a nurse, I never knew that. And really, it's my right hand. If I go and put my hand on someone's heart, it's like incredible. Their reaction, they're like, oh, and I just hold my hand there. And I think what happened with spirit guided me, the voice guided me at the age of 2, by every day throughout the day connecting with myself, I tapped into the energy of the heart. And because like, even when I get a massage the other day, I said to the girl, let me see if I can move my energy. And her eyes were closed. I put my right hand up. She goes, whoo, I feel your heat. Oh my God. When she was on the other side, I tried it with my left hand. I said, do you feel anything? She goes, no. I said, neither do I. So my heart became how can I say that? My hand became a conduit for the energy of the heart, which from everything I've been taught is what we are supposed to do for one another. We are like our role, our purpose as human beings is to hold a space for one another, to see our light and to see our dark, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the energy. I think too, it's been very hard because I'm not supposed to, my soul came here not to fit in at all. It was kind of ahead of the time. So I think what that first NDE and the following one showed me was that they were giving me the blueprint of what can be. Because the world I saw, the world was home, strangers, my family. I hugged 15, 20 people a day. I touched, there was no fear. There was that state of love, but it is an energy of love where, like, I mean, I feel the same love for like an inanimate object, like a tree or whatever that I do for people. It's that same, it's just, I think we've so overcomplicated everything, including love. Right.
I understand.
And so, yeah, so I know you want more than NDE. So the second NDE, I was 18. And again, to this day, I took myself back to that one too, but I can't find a whole lot of information. I still don't. It was a car accident coming home from Jersey to Pennsylvania, coming home from a bar, ended up over a bridge. I was in the back seat, ended up in the front seat over the steering wheel. And to this day, I try to take myself back. I don't know who was driving the car or what happened to them. I don't remember anything. The reason I try to take myself back to that one is songs for me. When I start hearing songs, like I'm obsessed for a song for a week, I go, what is the meaning of that song? And yeah, but there must be something. I still can't tap into that one. The third NDE, I was 42 and my heart just stopped. I was at home. I used to get these atypical migraines where, and I swear I was traveling because it was that feeling that you're there but not there, right? And the atypical migraines I had almost for like strokes, one left side, one side of weakness, whatever. So it happened at home. My kids were there, and I remember I was laying on the couch, and then the next thing I know, like I hear my kids talking to these people who I figured out were in the medical field, and I'm like, what are they doing? I couldn't see anything, but I could hear everything. And then I felt someone pounding on my chest. I'm like, what the hell is he doing the cardiac thump for? Like, why? Wait. And so, the whole ambulance ride, I heard everything. I wasn't alert. And they're talking about one guy knew me in high school, and they're like, what was she like? Because they're figuring I did drugs or something, right? And they're like, did she do drugs? Was she a partier? And he's like, she dabbled. I'm like, dabbled? I didn't dabble. Like, so it was really frustrating because I'm like, no, what do you? And then they're asking if I had STDs and go, no. I couldn't say anything, right? So when I get to the hospital, I wake up, there's a banana bag hanging, which is usually they give to someone who they think is detoxing or in DTs. And I'm like, I asked to see the EMTs and I said, listen, I'm a nurse. And just so you know, I heard everything you said. And they got all pissed off. And I'm like, I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, in nursing, I say it all the time. Over a patient you think is unconscious, people are talking. And I never do. I always just talk to the patient, right? Because I think people can really hear everything we're saying. So that third one, it must have been really challenging. My life was very difficult. I was in a state of flow out in the world, but at home it was very difficult. And it took a lot of work because God surrounded me by narcissists. So I learned how to deal with people's dark. So every day was a constant conversations with myself to stay in a strategy of silence with narcissists, right? Because you can't win against narcissists. So I think by the time I was in my 40s, I was kind of exhausted. And when I was in this process of writing the last couple of years, it came out. I stopped my own heart. How's that? Because they never found a reason why my heart started. There was no medical reason.
So your heart officially did stop and they had to resuscitate?
They brought it back by the thump. So I think what happens, like when I meditate, I don't meditate, but when I get calm, I can get really calm. And I didn't know as a nurse, like past couple of years, I've been using myself as a guinea pig to find out what's, and I mean, I can get my respirations down to like 3 to 4 a minute. And I think I was just so exhausted. I kind of went, I'm done. I'm done. And Tears from Heaven was the song that came up in that. So I didn't remember at the time, but when I took myself back, I did remember going up and the voice saying to me, you can stay if you want. You can stay. You've worked long enough. And I remember saying, no, I have to go back. My kids, I have to go back. And, but yeah, I think I got myself in such a deep meditative state that I actually slowed it enough that they thought it had stopped, but something that they needed to pound on my chest to get it going again. My body through all my life has never worked the way it should. Surgeries, walked around with a bowel obstruction for 3 years. No one could find it. Hemorrhaged in surgery. Doctors are like, you're hemorrhaging, but your hemoglobin, which is an indicator, it's like was fine. And I think what happens with us, the message is that when we live in our heart and we don't overthink things, we allow our heart to guide us and we keep those childlike characteristics alive, like play and imagination and daydreaming, that we tap into the flow of life, the energy, because the heart and the brain are in coherence on it energy-wise, and it syncs up with the earth. Now, I know that sounds wacky, but the proof of it is when they studied my brain, alpha waves, which are what help us be creative and what we increase when we meditate, right? Mine were twice the amount and half the speed, which pretty much I'm going, oh my God, I walked through my life in like a meditative state. But the speed they were at was the same as the Schumann resonance. Do you know what Schumann resonance is? It's the energy at the core of the earth. So I think my whole life has taught us that like when we just live in our heart and live in the moment, that we can tap into flow. We block ourselves from flow by thinking. There are many times that voiceless voice tells me things and my logic is, seriously? And I'm like, investments right now. It told me to invest a certain amount of money in something. And I'm like, all right, just listen to it. Because I know throughout my life, when this thinks and shuts down the heart, things never go well. But when I listen to my voice and tell my mind to turn off and let the voice in my heart guide me, it always goes right. Not immediately. It may take a while, you know what I mean? But so my experience at NDEs are different than other people's.
Your experiences and the things you talk about remind me a lot of this book called Don't Believe Everything You Think. Have you heard of that book?
Don't lead or don't believe.
Don't believe everything you think. And
No,
basically, the book talks a lot about the difference between thoughts and thinking. And thoughts kind of come up organically, just like you would say, you thought, go left, right?
right.
Whereas thinking is kind of like mind loops. It's like one of the causes of suffering.
Yeah.
And you start thinking about something over and over and over and over again. You kind of get into a mind loop, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're talking about heart and brain coherence and leading with your heart and going with thoughts versus if you're thinking about things over and over, you shut that down.
Yeah. And that's why. So when I was saying about my health, right? All at the age of 16, I went out in the world and said, I need to feel connected because I'd always felt connected to me. But senior year, I was tired of feeling the weird one, right? Like people like, what are you wearing to school tomorrow? And I'd be like, what do you think the meaning of life is? You know what I mean? Like I was that kind of kid. And so I tried to fit in with people. And that did not work because then I lost connection with me. When I tried to fit in, I wasn't living from my heart. And so, around the age of 16, I was I remember saying to myself, I either have to change this or end it because I don't want to live the rest of my life this way. So I went out in the world and I just started driving in strange neighborhoods and looking at people and going, how are they like me? How is my life like theirs? Like, what are they? And I made stories up that were incredible. And after a couple of months, I did feel less alone, but I wanted to know more about people. And so I would just get out and start walking up and down the street and go to people, hey, my name's Leslie. I kind of struggle with this. What about you? Now, here's the brilliance of God. The way my brain developed, I was telling Jeff earlier, I have to look in someone's eyes. If someone's talking to me and my head's turned, I have no clue what you're saying. I can't even figure out what the words are. So I had to look in people's eyes. And once you lock in with somebody's eyes, most people, their hearts pour open. And what happens is when you learn to listen with your eyes, hear with your ears, and understand with your heart, that's when we get into, entanglement, we're interconnected because it's a feeling that is undeniable in the heart. Doesn't work in this world. I mean, but the thing with that is when you walk away from people, they don't remember me and I don't remember them. I've made people cry happy tears. And 9 hours later, they walk right past me. I have no clue who I am. Because when you're at that connection at that level, you are in the alpha space. And the value of connecting at that level, I did that my whole life. I hugged and had deep, intimate conversations with strangers 15, 20 times a day. Plus, I took care of patients, right? And developed an emotional intimacy with them. That allowed that was the cause of why my body would have all these problems, but blood tests, no, it didn't pick it up because I was in such coherence that it tricked my body into thinking it was in homeostasis, which means everything's working well. Does that make sense? Like my obstruction, thank God I found a wacky surgeon. I'd go in and say, cut me open. I know there's an obstruction because no test. As soon as COVID hit and I was trying to figure out how to share my message without using a computer, right? And I started learning all this, my health started to plummet. I mean, I have been so sick the last 7 years. And the irony is it was all the things I've had my whole life. It's just I'm not hugging. There's no emotional intimacy, right? There's no, it is so like, to have a to have the life where we feel fulfilled, passionate, peaceful, right? It is so easy because that's what I had. But when we start going up here and we start looking for expectations and outcomes and all that, we shut it off.
Do you practice the heart coherence meditation? I'm not sure if that's what they call it, but there's like a meditation where you help to get your brain and heart in coherence.
Well, so here's the thing. I've been doing it since I was 2 years old. So when I found out about all this, I call it company heart math. I'm like, dude, okay, I am a walking testament to what you teach. But you can't just do it on yourself. What I found the last 7 years, because I've been doing this hand on heart, that's the same thing, hand on heart. When you breathe, but you don't blow it out, you just hold it tight. What I uncovered is that when you pull from the ground up and your abs are tight, it increases the pressure of the cerebral spinal fluid in our spine that goes up to the brain, crushes the crystals in the pineal gland, the third eye, does a bunch of other things. But what it does at the end of the day, it opens a gateway to the part of the brain that allows you to shift perception. And I'm going, oh my God, God was brilliant. And I'm like going, all these neuro researchers going, take this information I'm learning. It is so valuable, right? But I don't have the credentials. I'm not so I don't know. But anyhow, everything that happened to me that other people would say was trauma, was a disadvantage. It was the gift. Every way my brain developed was a gift. It allowed me. But the heart coherence, you can do it yourself, but if you don't have emotional intimacy with others, you can't get into heart coherence. That has been the hardest thing for me because I'm like, you need that emotional, how can I say this? To turn trauma to love. What I did that allowed me to turn trauma to love, I took my pain, I acknowledged it, I sat in the darkness of it, and I still do every day, right? Then once you do that, fear goes away. You no longer fear the dark. You no longer fear the pain. You no longer fear uncertainty. And then once the heart stays open, you don't guard your heart. You don't shield your heart from being hurt. Then you can feel one with others. And that's how you turn trauma into love. What we do is we run from the dark. We run from the fear. We shut our heart down, which creates fear. And then we feel separate from one another. So heart coherence isn't you. I mean, trust me, like I could, the last 7 years, I've had a very hard time getting into heart brain coherence without emotional intimacy from people. I don't need a lot of people, just like I'm talking even just a hug or a 5-minute intimate conversation. And by intimate, I mean not superficial. Like when I say to someone, how are you feeling today? What are the words of your heart? That's what I mean by emotional intimacy.
When you had your third NDE and you were in the ambulance hearing all this stuff, do you feel like you were out of your body?
Like everyone says, hovering over. No, I'm going to tell you honestly, my whole life I'm out of my body, like in and out throughout the day. That's what I'm saying. I can mentally, I got so good at feeling what I'm visioning, what I'm daydreaming about, that I think I go to not a place, but I feel in and out of my body all day. The way I can bring myself back is this. But in the experiences I've had, no, I've not hovered over my body. I've not hovered over. It's more what I have is the connection with the voiceless voice and whatever is bigger than us. It's conversations, right? Like, I have those conversations every day in my life, all throughout the day, with that voice, that voiceless voice.
If you had a friend that was grieving over the loss of a loved one, what type of advice would you give?
Hand on heart, to connect with them. Death has never scared me. And even with my own family has died, it doesn't, really upset me because not that it doesn't upset me, that was the wrong word. I don't grieve like other people do because from an early age, ever since I was a kid, I kind of knew, like, I kind of looked at my life as I, things that happened to me, my soul came here for a reason. I'm simply the vehicle. And so, what lessons does my soul need to learn to achieve its mission? And so, when somebody dies in early age, or even when someone's homeless, like I have empathy and compassion, but I don't feel sorry or grieve over it because I kind of look and go, that's their soul's purpose. How can I be compassionate and make their experience a little more loving? But as a nurse, even I don't try to help or fix people. I think I kind of just hold a space for them to find themselves. And that's, you know, yeah. So death, I think we're just energy. I mean, I believe we reincarnate, and I believe we keep reincarnating until we self-evolve, self-actualize. And once we've learned all the lessons we need, then I think, I don't know where we go. I think we're actually probably free to travel wherever we want to travel, the energy. I mean, it's too intense for this show because it'll take too long. But I mean, I channel a lot of writings from someone who calls himself God, which I think it is. And yeah, there's information when I can get it all together in a book that's going to be really cool. But I think the whole purpose of, if you believe in God, I think the purpose of why they created humans was simply to have a vehicle so that in the form of energy they could experience more, using us as the vehicles to experience life, the good, the bad, and the ugly of life. And I think all of us are dark. I think we're born with an open heart chakra, and we're born with a dark side, dark being sadness or whatever, not an evil, a dark side. But it's in the darkness that we have to sit in order to find the gift of light. You can't find light without being in the dark, right? And so when you do this, it helps you sit in your shadow and until you don't fear it, until you can find as much comfort in the dark as you do in the light. But it's a daily process.
Well, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Mm-hmm. Are you open to that?
Absolutely. I mean, my role here is more like a catalyst for healing, a guide, like a divine disruptor. I do street ministry, but I am always willing to talk to people, and I'll give them my phone number too if you want. I mean, I don't either email or phone number. I have a very hard time eye-hand coordination wise with technology. So, and I don't think it's a mistake I can't use technology. Let's put it that way. But so I really don't do, if I post things, it's few and far between. Yeah, so I don't do the whole social media thing. So my email is Rev Leslie, RevLeslie, Peters, Peters, RN @gmail. And my phone is 610-506-8298. And just text me first. Let me know you're from the show. I get a lot of sales calls. But yeah, please, my job here is a messenger and a teacher and kind of like a PR person for the divine, And so I am more than happy to talk to anyone.
In the beginning, I addressed you as Reverend Leslie Peters.
Yeah.
So are you some sort of ordained minister?
Yeah, I'm an ordained minister. And I never realized that since I was a kid, or not a kid, but since I was doing street ministry at the age of 16, people would always feel like, you sound like Jesus. And I'm like, no, I never read a Bible. But another thing, the voice never encouraged me to read a Bible or go to church. So, right? I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, so when I left this, I heard just become an ordained minister. And it's funny, people that knew me through my life, when they saw the Reverend, they're like, it's about time. Like, what do you mean? So, but I'm different. I say like I heal hearts without a stethoscope and souls without religion. I don't talk religion. I don't preach. my job is, my soul's mission is to model a different way of being and then to hold a space for people to find themselves. And, part of this ministry is literally going out, hugging people, putting hands, going up to strangers and going, excuse me, do you trust me? Take their hand, put it on my heart and my hand on theirs. And that's what I do, and so that an inspirational speaker, but I guess a healer, healing facilitator, divine energy. And so,
well, you're in Southern California. Have you ever gone down to Hollywood Boulevard and done that?
you know what? I was going to do it the other day and it poured in California. So I figured, Spirit, not time yet to do that. I was like, it's pouring. It never rains in California. But yeah, that's why I have two signs. I have like a hug to heal poster, and I make gifts. Over the past year, probably year and a half, I've made I have little poems and little cards about oneness and us, and I made a little gift with each. I don't know. I think I started with 1,000 gifts, but yeah, and that's kind of what I do. So if you see me and I'm coming up towards you, just don't worry, I'm not. I'm just doing my mission. And yeah, I'll touch your heart and give you a hug with your permission.
Do people get confused and feel like they have to offer you money or anything like that?
Some people, not with a hug, but with flowers sometimes. Where I live, they have free flowers. So I'll just take a dozen or two and go hand to people. And in Burbank, at least, 80% of people are like, no. And I'm like, I don't want anything in return. And then I'll have people take it and go, what's this for? I'm like, just because. Like, why not? And so, look, who I am in my life, and I never understood. I understand it now. When your heart is open and pure, right? And by pure, I mean you can't. I've never let my ego rule my heart. Like, I can't be manipulated or bought, or I'm not for sale. That's what I mean by pure, right? And it doesn't mean I don't do bad things, or it doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. I'm not perfect, but it just means I don't let my ego rule the show. So people either hate you or love you. And what I've learned is that the open heart serves as a mirror, but I don't serve as a mirror. It's the open heart chakra. And so when someone comes up against, like, here's the open heart, right? If someone comes up against me and their heart's open, we're going to immediately connect. And my way of being inspires those people. When I worked with welfare moms, I was told that 30% improvement in life outcome. And I think that's why they wanted to know their truth. They wanted to be seen. But when I come up, who have been around the last 7 years, middle-class professional people who have armored their heart, probably since childhood, when they come up, my heart shows them their truth. They don't know what's going on, so they think their truth is what they're seeing in me. And so it's like oil and vinegar. I intimidate. It's like when your heart is open and pure, you're like a human lie detector. And you have discernment. I've known my whole life when I'm lied to, when I'm manipulated. I know when I'm talking to someone if they're telling me the truth or not, or what their intentions are. And so that's, if we open our hearts and allow ourselves just to rest in the divine truth of our hearts, then life gets easier in that sense. You take the pressure off yourself. And I think one of the things is when we realize we all have a dark side and a light side, it takes the pressure off. Yes, okay, I know I'm sadness, I'm like doing this, but I have a choice to shift it, to sit in the discomfort of pain and fear and uncertainty, and just sit with it until I'm not afraid of it anymore. And that's when you shift it to release light and love. And I see so many people, particularly now, gathering in faith. I'm like, they're gathering in fear, because faith is through an open heart. And when you realize it, all right, one last thing. So if this is your heart, I'm going to try to give you an example of the importance. So say this is your heart, right? Boom, 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 boom. And when you have pain and your heart is open, your pain, your energy, other people's energy just flows right through. So the energy isn't stagnant. Now, if this is my heart and I block it, what happens? My pain gets trapped. The love I hold in my heart gets trapped. And then other people's pain gets in and gets trapped, right? Open the heart chakra, take the armor off. And yes, it hurts in the moment, but then it processes through. And I always tell people, like, we don't have to let God in. We just have to let him out. You know, you trap what the armor we wear to keep ourselves safe is what actually keeps us unsafe for our entire lives. You know, no one can heal behind a mask, lose sight of who you are. And the armor is a heavy burden to carry, be trapped under it, you know.
Well, Leslie, before we finish up, can you give us one more positive message?
I've seen the world, what it can be and who we can be. And we are so much better than we think we are. We really are. I've seen the best of what society deems the worst people. I've seen the worst of what society deems the best people. And the difference is whether or not they're willing to see themselves. You know, so I think for everyone, just the question you want to ask yourself every day as you're connecting with your heart is, do you see me? Do you see yourself? You can't see yourself. You can't ever feel safe. So, but I know we can get there. I've lived it. No, it's not a knowledge, it's a knowing and a wisdom of experience. I've seen the world that's to come. And it might get a little rocky until we get there, but it's an amazing, it's like utopia. It really is. It's just fulfillment and all your desires for money and material things. When your heart is, when you're in that state of peace and joy and fulfillment, you don't want any of that stuff. You know, it's just, to just practice on opening your heart, you know. And this is, I believe, the simplest way to do it, and really practice with strangers. Share what's in your heart.
Leslie, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thanks. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity. Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.